Hello, I am Coach Irene. I have been teaching English language for more than 5 years. In this lesson, I am going to teach you all about prepositions. Let's jump right in. Welcome to Level Up with Coach Irene. What is a preposition? A preposition is a word that shows the relationship between a noun or pronoun and other elements in a sentence, often indicating location, direction, time, or manner. Common prepositions include in, by, on, at, with, about, to. For example, the book is on the table. This shows location. She arrived before noon. This also shows time. They walked to the park. This shows direction. Prepositions come before a noun or pronoun and form a prepositional phrase which adds context to the sentence. Prepositions can be classified into three: simple prepositions, compound prepositions, phrasal prepositions. Simple prepositions are prepositions that can be referred to as single word prepositions. Examples: in, on, at, by, to, from, over, under, through, into, unto, within, outside, throughout, without. For example, the cup is on the table. Number two, we have compound prepositions. They are two-word or multiple-word prepositions. Examples: because of, out of, due to, according to, apart from, instead of, in spite of, in front of. Example: in spite of the traffic, we arrived on time. Number three, we have phrasal prepositions. They are prepositions made of more than one word. They are also called prepositional phrases or complex prepositions. They consist of two or more words. They are used to indicate relationship in space, time, or other abstract connections. They include on behalf of, by means of, in addition to, with regards to, in accordance with, for the sake of, in relation to, in favor of. The key difference between compound prepositions and phrasal preposition is that compound prepositions are often just a combination of two and sometimes three words that directly function as a preposition, whilst phrasal prepositions often resemble full phrases or more complex combinations of words and can have a slightly broader meaning or connection between ideas. Let's compare these two sentences. The first one is a phrasal prepositional sentence, and the other is a compound prepositional sentence. Sarah and I are meeting in front of the restaurant. This phrase indicates the location where Sarah and I are meeting. The second sentence says, the event was cancelled because of the storm. This phrase indicates the reason for the cancellation of the event. Notice that the first sentence provided more specific context or detail about the relationship. The compound preposition, which is the second sentence, typically convey a cause or a reason. It functioned as a preposition. There are different types of prepositions. Let's look at them one after the other. To begin with, let's look at prepositions of time. Prepositions of time are used to indicate when something happened or to describe the relationship between events and time. They include at, on, in, by, before, after, during, for, since, until, till, from, to, within. These prepositions help clarify when events occur or how long they last in relation to other actions or events. Sentence examples: the results will be announced within 2 weeks. The shop will be open until 9 p.m. Let's meet after lunch. He was born in 1990. Number 2, prepositions of place. They are used to show the location or position of something in relation to another object. These prepositions help indicate where someone or something is situated. Examples include in, on, at, under, above, below, over, next to, between, behind, in front of, opposite, near, by, inside, outside. Examples include the keys are in the drawer. He sat on the bench. We will meet at the station. The picture is above the sofa. These prepositions help clarify the spatial relationship between objects or people and are essential for describing where things are located. Number 3, prepositions of manner. They describe how or in what way something is done. They indicate the method, means, or manner in which an action is carried out. They include by, with, like, in, without, through, as, via. Example sentences: she left the house without a jacket. These indicate the absence of something in the manner of the doing. They worked in silence. This shows the condition, state, or manner in which something happens. The message was delivered through a friend. This shows that something is done by means of a process or by using a method. He was chosen as the leader. These indicate that something is done in the role or capacity of someone or something. These prepositions help to clarify how actions are performed or the means by which things are accomplished, adding detail and specificity to sentences. Number 4, prepositions of direction or movement. This refers to the movement from one place to another or the direction in which something moves. They show how things or people move and where they go in relation to other things. They include to, into, onto, toward, across, over, through, along, up, down, off, out of, past, from, around. Examples: they walked around the park. She climbed up the hill. The car drove through the tunnel. The plane flew over the city. These prepositions help clarify the direction or destination of movement in a sentence, describing how people or things move from one place to another. Prepositions of agent or instrumentality indicate the agent, that is, who or what causes an action, or the instrument used to perform an action. These prepositions help to explain how something is done or by whom it is performed. They include by, with, via, through, using, in. Examples: he sent the message by email. Favor painted the picture with a brush. We communicated via video call. These prepositions clarify who or what is responsible for an action, that is, the agent, and what tools or methods are used to achieve an action, that implies the instrumentality. Number 6, prepositions of cause, purpose, or reason. They indicate why something happens or the purpose behind an action. They express the relationship between an action and its cause, purpose, or reason. They include because of, due to, owing to, for, on account of, in order to, for the sake of, out of, from. Examples include the event was cancelled due to bad weather. She couldn't attend the party owing to illness. He went to the store for milk. He saved money in order to buy a new car. These prepositions explain why something happens or for what purpose an action is taken. They help to clarify the motivation, goal, or cause behind actions and events. To proceed in this lesson, let's look at 25 most commonly confused prepositions. To begin with, let's look at in, on, and at. The prepositions in, on, and at are used to indicate place and time, but they are applied differently depending on the level of specificity. In is used when referring to larger areas or enclosed spaces. Think of in as referring to something inside a larger area or volume. For example, the food is in the fridge. She is in the room. On is used when referring to surfaces or specific locations in terms of being on top of or touching a surface. We use on when something is located on a surface or attached to something. For example, there is a stain on your shirt. At is used when referring to specific locations or points. It refers to a more precise or specific point in space. We are meeting at the restaurant. He is at the door. Another difference between them is that in can be used for longer periods of time, like months, years, centuries, or seasons. For example, I was born in 1990. She likes to ski in the winter. Whilst on is used for specific days and dates, such as days of the week or particular calendar days. The meeting is on Monday. Her birthday is on October 5th. Lastly, at is used for precise times, for specific exact times. It includes hours, minutes, or precise moments. For example, she will meet us at noon. The train leaves at 6 p.m. These prepositions helps to pinpoint location and time at different levels of specificity. Take note of the prepositions on and in when referring to print or electronic formats. For newspapers, print formats, use in. For example, I read the article in the newspaper. For electronic formats like internet, website, online platforms, use on. Example, I saw the news on their website. In is used for papers, whilst on is used for online or digital sources. Another commonly confused pair of preposition is for versus since. The prepositions for and since are both used to express time, but they are used in different contexts. For refers to a duration of time, that is, how long something has been happening. It is used to indicate the length of time. For example, I have been studying for 3 hours. This describes the duration of the activity. Whilst since refers to a starting point in time, that is, when something started. It is used to indicate the point in time when something began and continues until now. For example, I have been studying since 8 a.m. This describes when the activity started. For is used for duration. Example, for 3 days, for 1 month. Since talks about the starting point up until now. Since last month. Since last Monday. In addition, for can be used for purpose or reason. For example, I went to the store for groceries. This shows that the purpose of the speaker going to the store was to get groceries. It shows purpose. It can also be used for reason. For example, he apologized for his mistake. This sentence shows reason. The reason for his apology was his mistake. Since can be used for reason. For example, since it was raining, we stayed inside. The reason for staying inside is the rain. Let us look at another pair, over and above. The prepositions over and above both refer to position. However, they are used in slightly different ways depending on the context. Over refers to being directly on top of or covering something and can sometimes imply movement or extent. It can be used in both physical and non-physical contexts. Example, the lamp is over the table. This means that the lamp is directly above the table, possibly covering it with light. Another example would be the bird flew over the house. This means that the bird moved across the house from one side to another. Another example would be they argued over the decision. This refers to a topic or reason of agreement. The first example talks about physical position, the second, movement, the third, non-physical. Let's talk about above. It refers to a higher position, however, does not imply direct contact or covering. It is typically used in static situations not involving movement. Example, the picture is hanging above the couch. This implies that the picture is higher than the couch but not directly covering it. Another example would be her performance is above average. This indicates a level higher than average. The first example talks about physical position, the second, abstract. The key difference between them is that over often implies directly on top of or covering something and can imply movement, whilst above simply indicates a higher position without suggesting direct contact or movement. Let's look at another pair, under and below. The prepositions under and below both refer to something being in lower position. However, they have slightly different uses and connotations. Under refers to something being directly beneath or covered by another object, often with a sense of being in contact or close proximity. It can also imply being part of something in authority or hierarchy. For example, the keys are under the table. This sentence implies that the keys are directly beneath the table. possibly touching the floor or table legs. Another example would be, she works under a great manager. These indicate hierarchy, where the manager is in a higher position. The first sentence implies physical position, whilst the second is figurative. Below refers to a lower position, but not necessarily directly beneath something and usually without implying the direct contact. It can also refer to levels, ranks, or temperatures. For example, the temperature is below freezing. This implies that it is lower than freezing, but not implying a direct connection. Another example would be, his performance was below expectation. This implies that the performance was lower than a standard or level. The first sentence implies physical position, whilst the second shows rank or level. The key difference between them is that under implies being directly beneath or covered by something and can suggest proximity or direct contact, whilst below simply indicates a lower position or level without the need for direct contact or proximity. Let's look at the next pair, the prepositions to and toward. Both indicate direction. However, they have different meanings. To indicates a specific destination or endpoint. It shows movement in the direction of a target or goal. It emphasizes the endpoint of the movement or action. For example, I am going to the store. This sentence implies that the store is the final destination. Another example would be, she handed the book to me. This sentence implies that the action of handling has a specific recipient, me, whilst towards indicates movement in the direction of something, but without necessarily reaching the final destination. It emphasizes the direction. Example, he walked towards the park. This sentence implies that he is moving in the direction of the park, but it's unclear if he will reach it. Another example is, the boat is heading towards the shore. The boat is moving in the direction of the shore, but it may or may not arrive there. The key difference between them is that to emphasizes the specific destination or target, whilst towards focus on the direction without necessarily reaching the endpoint. Let's compare to and from. Like we earlier stated, to indicates a specific destination or endpoint. It shows movement in the direction of a target or goal. For example, I am going to the gym. From indicates movement away from a starting point or origin. It shows where something began. Example, she's coming from work. This gift is from my parents. Whilst to shows movement towards a destination or recipient, from indicates moving away from or indicating the origin or starting point. Moving forward, we're going to be looking at 4 commonly confused prepositions. They include along, around, across, and through. Along describes movement, following a line, path, or surface. It suggests moving parallel to something or moving in the same direction as something else. Example, we walked along the river. This sentence implies that the movement is parallel to the river. Another example would be, there are trees along the road. This sentence implies that the trees are positioned on the side of the road. Let's look at around. Around refers to movement in a circular direction or on all sides of something. It implies circling or surrounding. Example, he walked around the building. This sentence implies that he moved in a circle around the building. Another example would be, there were chairs around the table. This sentence implies that the chairs were positioned on all sides of the table. Number 15, we have across. Across refers to movement from one side to the other of a surface, area, or space. It suggests crossing something like a road, river, or field. For example, she ran across the street. This sentence implies movement from one side of the street to the other. We traveled across the country. This sentence implies movement from one side of the country to the other. Let's look at through. Through describes movement into one side and out the other of an enclosed or defined space. It suggests passing within or inside something. For example, they walked through the tunnel. This sentence implies movement from one end of the tunnel to the other within the tunnel. Another example would be, the river flows through the city. This sentence implies that the river passes within or across the city. The key difference between along, around, across, and through include: along suggests movement parallel to something. Around, movement in a circle or surrounding something. Across, movement from one side to the other. Through, movement within something, entering at one point and existing at another. These prepositions can also be used for non-physical situations. For example, Mary and I made progress along the way. The discussion revolved around climate. Her influence spread across different industries. We got through a challenging time. Like we saw, these prepositions can be used metaphorically to describe processes, relationships, or abstract concepts. Let's look at the difference between, among, and admit. The prepositions between, among, and admit or admist are used to describe relationships, positioning, or situations. However, they differ in how they indicate placement or involvement in physical and non-physical contexts. Between refers to the position or relationship involving two or more distinct entities, but typically viewed individually. It suggests a clear separation or distinction, used when talking about two things or when the entities are seen as distinct individuals, even if they are more than two. Example, she stood between the two buildings. This implies that there are two distant buildings on either side. Another example is, the negotiations between the three countries were successful. This involves three distinct parties. Among refers to something being in the midst of or surrounded by multiple elements. It suggests being part of a group where the individual element may not be clearly distinguished. It is used when talking about three or more items or people, especially when they are part of a group. For example, she was among her friends. Additional example would be, there was a sense of excitement among the crowd. Admit or admist refers to something being surrounded by or in the middle of a certain situation or environment, often implying a background of circumstances, especially chaotic or difficult. It is used in both literal and figurative contexts, typically referring to environments, events, or abstract conditions. Example, the house stood amid the trees. Another example would be he remained calm amid the chaos. The main difference between them is that between involves two or more distinct entities. Among involves being part of a group or surrounded by multiple elements. Admit or admist describe being in the middle or surrounded by certain situations or environment. Next, let us compare onto and into. The prepositions onto and into both describe movement or direction. However, they are used in different contexts depending whether the movement is to a surface or an enclosed space. Remember on and in when using onto and into. Onto refers to movement toward the surface of something. It implies going on top of or to the surface of an object or area. For example, she climbed onto the roof. He jumped onto the bandwagon, meaning he joined a popular trend or idea. Into refers to movement toward the interior of something. It implies going inside or within an enclosed space or area. For physical example, we have she walked into the room. Another figurative example is he delved into the topic. The key difference between them is that onto describe movement to a surface, whilst into describe movement inside or within an enclosed space. Let us look at another pair, off and off. Note, they are both prepositions. However, this time around, they are very different. They have different meanings and uses. Off refers to separation or removal from a surface, place, or position. It describes disconnection. It often means movement away from something. Example, he jumped off the chair. The meeting was called off. Off, on the other hand, shows possession, relationship, or origin. It does not imply movement. However, it indicates belonging or association. It describes connection. For example, this is a photo of my family. The capital of France is Paris. Now, the key difference between them is that off refers to movement away from or removal, or you can also call it disconnection, whilst off refers to possession, relationship, or origin. You can also call it connection. Lastly, let's look at beside and besides. They are similar in form, however, they have different meanings and uses. Beside refers to location and means next to or at the side of something. She sat beside me, meaning she sat next to me. The lamp is beside the bed. Besides, on the other hand, has two meanings. Number one, in addition to or as well as. It is used to add extra information. For example, besides English, he speaks Spanish. Number two, it means apart from or except for. It is used to exclude something. For example, no one came to the party besides John, meaning that John was the only one who came. No one else did. The key difference between them is that beside refers to physical location, whilst besides refers to addition or exception. Way to go! We have come to the end of this lesson. I trust that you got value. Do well to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our exquisite channel. I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.